But yeah, no, it was that breaking point that just decided enough is enough, and I might make some sacrifices now, but I much rather make them now than down the road when I'm much older.
Is it ever just like the idea of working a 9 to 5, or like if for you it was like 24/7 that just like mentally drained you to the point where you're like, I've had enough of this and it's time to pursue my own kind of entrepreneur basis, like make my own content for other people?
Yeah, it was part of that, right? Because like I said, since this job was 24/7, right, it kind of infiltrated the family life, right? Like so, there'll be a lot of calls at home, a lot of instability in that way. So it's just it was came to the point where it's putting a strain on my family life, right? So that's what, like you said, I had my turning point, breaking point, whatever you want to call it, right? But that's where I decided is like I had enough. I took a time out from work for a little bit, and that's where I made my decision. I really sat down with myself and made it like I actually have those papers still in my office. I saved a few pages that I wrote like, okay, what I want for my life. And I looked at it, and none of that concerned that job. So I was like, all right, I made my conclusion. So, but yeah, no, it was that breaking point that just decided enough is enough, and I might make some sacrifices now, but I much rather make them now than down the road when much older.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
that's very inspiring. Like
yeah,
we've only been talking for like 5 minutes, and I'm already very inspired by your story. So so let's talk about now M media now. So
yeah.
you decided to start a business, or like talk to me about like what you think M media is and how you would describe M media, MD media. Sorry.
Actually, funny thing is, it even stars in MD Media. It started with my brother. Is what would you name it? And I can't remember even the name. But it
Okay.
was a different, like it was a joint with my brother, right? And then we kind of realized in the first months, like, okay, we kind of want to do our separate thing, right? I kind of said, it's like, you know what? Like, you do your own thing, I'll do my own thing, and then we just collaborate together in the future. You know what I mean? And then that way, like, you work on your schedule, I work on my schedule, close. Put it this way, we just had different work ethics. You know what I mean? So it's like, I was go, go, go. It was like, yo, chill. So I was like, no, like, we gotta go, right? So I'm like, but yeah, and then MD Media is just at the time, like I felt for something like I was actually sitting about it for a long time, like thinking about a name. I was like, I thought about like MD Media was my first stock. It was just my initials and media. It's sketchy. And it's easy, like through the ears. So I was like, okay, that's like it's corny. It's my initials.
Mhm.
I was like, go ahead, and I'm thinking and thinking. I'm like, nah, this. Like, I saw so many names out there, and so many names. I was like, oh my god, and I just decided to be like, you know what? In the end of the day, the name is not gonna make itself. The work that I'm gonna present and the work I'm gonna do is gonna speak, the volume, right? So it's like I just decided to stick to indie media. It's nice, it's easy to hear. It's just I've decided with a nice like classic or just keep it basic, nothing too flashy. Like so and then yeah, from there I just carried from there. And then actually my first year of creating that, I was still working like that job, right? And so
Yeah.
like to your point before, it was another point in my life where my work at home was more important than the work I was doing, right? Even
Right.
though this job was paying bills, right? This job was more important to me. It was more purposeful for me, right? There was a in the other job, I'll go sit somewhere for 3 hours, stare out the window, just like yeah, just another body. I'm here, I'm here. So it's
Wow.
like I've decided I didn't want to do it for the next 30 years anymore. So
Mhm.
So what was that process like? I know like you worked majority of the day at your other job. Putting in the hours for MD Media obviously wasn't easy for you, right? You had to make some sacrifices, and you had to maybe even lose friendships here and there. But what was that process like? And knowing that one day that your vision can actually become a reality, what was that process like for you?
it was challenging. It still is. The challenge never stops for me, right?
Mhm.
But I find from challenges, like the bigger the challenges, the greater outcome is, right? So it's like I knew if I'm gonna stick to it, And don't get me wrong, I went through the same kind of challenging process in my work, right? So I was like, I already kind of knew how to handle, put it this way, kind of stress. And I was still learning, right? Because it's still under a lot of stress, like you said. Right? But yeah, it was very challenging, and like you said, I had to make sacrifices. That's where, like, what I want to do. Do I want to go hang out with friends? Do I want to go to a vacation every year? Do I want, like, what's my priorities in life, right? And that was kind of part of the conversation where I had like, okay, like, well, I'm going to dedicate my time, because at one point I realized, my time is more valuable than my money, because where I dedicate my energy, where I dedicate the thing, right? Like, put it this way, I dedicate my energy towards building financial security, money, pension, right? All that, but it completely drained me. I was unhappy, but I was like, I had money, right? And now I'm just like, okay, I'm building myself. It's not the same paycheck, obviously, but I'm happy, right? I'm present. I'm like, I'm doing stuff, and it's something meaning to me, right? So, like, that's where you kind of part of the process where you realize what you have to sacrifice, right? And it's up to you and how much you want to sacrifice, right? And it's all depends, it's all depends on you and how much you will to put into it, right? Because in the end of the day, the amount of time you put in, right, the greater it will be. That's what at least I believe in. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So you started what you said around 2 years ago. So
2019,
okay,
essentially.
yeah. So in the very beginning, right? So you're working your job. You also got this side hustle that you're trying to pursue, your passion project. How how were you managing your time, and then what was the beginning steps like? Getting the first client, getting the second client, building that clientele. What was that like?
Honestly, I'm gonna be straight honest. It was pretty terrible.
Okay, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It was for me because I came from a job that required me to be 24/7 in that job. I was like, okay, like, what I need to do now, right? So obviously some mistakes had to be made, right? So it was a kind of, not mistakes, but it was like trial, like, trial and error period, where I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this, see if it works. If not, I'm gonna try this, right? So that was kind of like also the challenging part, finding your kind of groove, right? Finding your, hey, what I'm good at, what is going to attract people to my page, right? And then and then yeah, like I said, and then I realized, like, like, with this Instagram page, right? I just had to dedicate more time to it. Like, I just absolutely had to, because, like, there'll be times where I'll plan to do shoots and stuff like that, right? Or reach your clients, and I couldn't do it because suddenly work calls, and like, okay, I gotta go. Sorry. And then, like, well, and then the clients look at me, is like, well, wait a second, I thought this is your work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's sort of those kind of things, right? So, and then towards the end where I realized, okay, I gotta take a time out. That's where I start approaching more clients and reaching to more clients, right? And I think the more challenging stuff was to establish myself as, like, okay, like, I'm trustworthy, and then, like, kind of see my work, and stuff like that. And I think my biggest takeaway, and I had to show my true self. Like, a lot of people, there's a lot of passionate people in the city that try to, like, in the same industry, photography, videography, right, with great talents, great editors, right, but they all look the same. You know what I mean? So I think once you kind of connect with the audience, like, hey, this is me, this is why I'm doing this, right, this is my inspiration, that's where people are attracted to you. And it seems to work so far. And so being modest about it, but we're getting there. We're getting there. We're still far away, but we're getting there.